Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everybody, Haribo, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Please, everybody sing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, oh, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Radhe Radhe, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning, the class will be given by His Grace Pariksit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. and he will be speaking and discussing and sharing on Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 27. And we are in the chapter entitled The Passing of Bhishma Dev and the Presence of Lord Krishna. Without further delay, we will go straight into the class, and it's all yours. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Yay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Jaya Gopiyanna Vallabha Girivadadari. Jaya Gopiyanna Vallabha Girivadadari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijanna Vallabha Girivadadari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Sharad Bihari Radha Sharad Bihari Ki Radhe. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Ki Radhe. Jaya Radha Shama Sundara Radha Shama Sundara Ki Radhe. Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Stotara Satasi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Astotara Satashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Pramanande, Hare Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pestaya Bhutale Srimadi Bhakti Swami Tinali. Namaste Krishna Padaya Bhagavad Sri Guru Chakra. Narayana Namaskritya Narochaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashta Prayesva Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavata Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Good morning and welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class, which is from this morning, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 27. Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 27. Dhana Dharman Raja Dharman Moksha Dharman Vibhagasa Shri Dharman Bhagavat Dharman Samasa Vyasa Yogata Dana Dharman Raja Dharman Moksha Dharman Vibhagasa Shri Dharman Bhagavat Dharman Samasa Vyasa Yogata Dana Dharman Raja Dharman Moksha Dharman Vibhagasa Shri Dharman Bhagavat Dharman Samasa Vyasa Yogata. Hare Krishna.
Dana dharman raja dharman moksha dharman vibhagashah stri dharman bhagavat dharman samasa vyasa yogatah.
Dana dharman raja dharman moksha dharman vibhagashaha tri dharman bhagavat dharman samasa vyasa yogatah.
दान धर्मान राज धर्मान मोक्ष धर्मान विभागशः स्त्री धर्मान भगवत धर्मान समास व्यास योग्यतः.
Yeah, anyone else? All right. So this is word for word now. Dana Dharman, the acts of charity. Raja Dharman, pragmatic activities of the kings. Moksha Dharman, the acts for salvation. Vibhagasha, by divisions. Stri Dharman, duties of women. Bhagavat Dharman, the acts of the devotees. Samasa, generally. Vyasa, explicitly. Yogata, by means of. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He then explained by divisions, acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of kings and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. To give charity is one of the householder's main functions, and he should be prepared to give in charity at least 50% of his hard-earned money. A brahmachari or student should perform sacrifices. A householder should give charity, and the person in the retired life or in the renounced order should practice penances and austerities. Those are the general functions of all the ashrams, or orders of life on the path of self-realization. In the brahmachari life, the training is sufficiently imparted so that one may understand that the world as property belongs to the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. No one, therefore, can claim to be the proprietor of anything in the world. Therefore, in the life of a householder, which is sort of a license for sex enjoyment, one must give in charity for the service of the Lord. Everyone's energy is generated or borrowed from the reservoir of energy of the Lord. Therefore, the resultant actions of such energy must be given to the Lord in the shape of transcendental loving service for him. As the rivers draw water from the sea through the clouds and again go down to the sea, similarly, our energy is borrowed from the Supreme Source, the Lord's energy, and it must return to the Lord. That is the perfection of our energy. The Lord, therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 27, says that whatever we do, whatever we undergo as penance, whatever we sacrifice, whatever we eat, or whatever we give in charity must be offered to him, the Lord. That is the way of utilizing our borrowed energy. When our energy is utilized in this way, our energy is purified from the contamination of material inebrities, and thus we become fit for our original natural life of service to the Lord. Raja Dharma is a great science, unlike modern diplomacy for political supremacy. The kings were trained systematically to become munificent and not merely be tax collectors. They were trained to perform sacrifices only for the prosperity of the subjects. To lead the prajas to the attainment of salvation was the great duty of the king. The father, the spiritual master, and the king are not to become irresponsible in the matter of leading their subjects to the path of ultimate liberation from birth, death, diseases, and old age. When these primary duties are properly discharged, there is no need of government of the people by the people. In modern days, the people in general occupy the administration by the strength of manipulated votes, but they are never trained in the primary duties of the king, and that is also not possible for everyone. Under the circumstances, the untrained administrators play havoc to make the subjects happy in all respects. On the other hand, these untrained administrators gradually become rogues and thieves and increase the taxation to finance a top-heavy administration that is useless for all purposes. Actually, the qualified brahmanas are meant to give direction to the kings for proper administration in terms of the scriptures like the Manu Samhita and Dharma Shastras of Parashara. A typical king is the ideal of the people in general. And if the king is pious, religious, chivalrous, and munificent, the citizens generally follow him. Such a king is not a lazy, sensuous person living at the cost of the subjects, but alert always to kill thieves and dacoits. The pious kings were not merciful to dacoits and thieves in the name of nonsensical ahimsa or nonviolence. The thieves and dacoits were punished in an exemplary way so that in the future, no one would dare commit such nuisances in an organized form. Such thieves and dacoits were never meant for administration as they are now. The taxation law was simple. There was no force, no encroachment. The king had a right to take 1/4 of the production made by the subject. In addition, the king had a right to claim 1/4 of whatever wealth that the subject allotted for charity or spent for some other purpose. One would never grudge parting with it because due to the pious king and religious harmony, there was enough natural wealth, namely grains, flowers, fruits, silk, cotton, milk, jewels, minerals, etc., and therefore no one was materially unhappy. The citizens were rich in agriculture and animal husbandry, and therefore they had enough grains, fruits, and milk without any artificial needs of soaps and toilets, cinemas, and bars. The king had to see that the reserved energy of humanity was properly utilized. Human energy is meant not exactly for fulfilling animal propensities, but for self-realization. The whole government was specifically designed to fulfill this particular purpose. As such, the king had to select properly the cabinet ministers, but not on the strength of the voting background. The ministers, the military commanders, and even the ordinary soldiers were all selected by personal qualification, and the king had to supervise them properly before they were appointed to their respective posts. The king was especially vigilant to see that the tapasvis, or persons who sacrificed everything for disseminating spiritual knowledge, were never disregarded. The king knew well that the Supreme Personality of Godhead never tolerates any insults to his unalloyed devotees. Such tapasvis were trusted leaders even of the rogues and thieves, who would never disobey the orders of the tapasvis. The king would give special protection to illiterates, the helpless, and the widows of the state. Defense measures were arranged previous to any attack by the enemies. The taxing process was easy, and it was not meant for squandering, but was for strengthening the reserve fund. The soldiers were recruited from all parts of the world, and they were trained for special duties. As far as salvation is concerned, one has to conquer the principles of lust, anger, unlawful desires, avarice, and bewilderment. To get freedom from anger, one should learn how to forgive. To be free from unlawful desires, one should not make plans. By spiritual culture, one is able to conquer sleep. By tolerance only can one conquer desires and avarice. Disturbances from various diseases can be avoided by regulated diets. By self-control, one can be free from false hopes, and money can be saved by avoiding undesirable association. By practice of yoga, one can control hunger, and worldliness can be avoided by culturing the knowledge of impermanence. Dizziness can be conquered by rising up, and false arguments can be conquered by factual ascertainment. Talkativeness can be avoided by gravity and silence, and by prowess, one can avoid fearfulness. Perfect knowledge can be obtained by self-cultivation. One must be free from lust, avarice, anger, dreaming, etc., to actually attain the path of salvation. As far as the women class are concerned, they are accepted as a power of inspiration for men. As such, women are more powerful than men. Mighty Julius Caesar was controlled by Cleopatra. Such powerful women are controlled by shyness. Therefore, shyness is important for women. Once this control valve is loosened, women can create havoc in society by adultery. Adultery means production of unwanted children known as Varna Shankara, who disturb the world. The last item taught by Bhishma was the process of pleasing the Lord. We are all eternal servants of the Lord. And when we forget this essential part of our nature, we are put into material conditions of life. The simple process of pleasing the Lord, for the householders especially, is to install the deity of the Lord at home. By concentrating on the deity, one will progressively go on with the daily routine work, worshiping the deity at home, serving the devotee, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, residing in a holy place, and chanting the holy name of the Lord are all inexpensive items by which one can please the Lord. Thus, the subject matter was explained by the grandfather to his grandchildren. Om Gnana Timirandasya Gnana Gnana Shalakaya Chakshu Umlitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Vayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajiva Sadvaitam Avadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shabanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhve Evaja Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimadi Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravan Picharini Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschathyadi Chitarini Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurachise Namaha Nandali Namaya Vigrahaya Himagya Divacha Vishindaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Hare Krishna. The translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 27. He then explained by divisions acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. Hare Krishna. So the he that's being referred to is Grandfather Bhishma. As you see in the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada concluded that the grandfather explained the various aspects to his grandchildren. The grandchildren, Pandavas, at the time that Krishna had come back to the battlefield, to the Dham, to Kshetra, place of pilgrimage, and Bhishma was getting ready to leave his body. By Krishna's own arrangement, he asked that Grandfather Bhishma explained to Maharaj Yudhishthira, who was going to be the next king, how to rule and rule properly. There is quite a bit that Grandfather Bhishma talked to Yudhishthira about, and some of it is summarized here by Srila Prabhupada. So, as was explained here in the translation, he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. So he touched on it, and then he went into details for each one of them. And Srila Prabhupada starts with the varnas, and particularly the householder. Why? Because in this society, as will be also in the world and will continue to be in the world, the varna that will be the main one will be householder. They're the ones that work. They're the ones that bring in money. Actually, it's an ashram. I have to correct myself. It's a grihastha ashram. So household is actually grihastha. So the ashram that he described, that this particular household ashram is set for giving charity. And he was more specific based on what Rupa Goswami had talked about. 50% of the money should go for charity. Now, it's not charity to just give to any organization. The householder or grihastha is to give charity to further propagate Krishna consciousness. That is the important way in which money or charitable items are to be used. The householder should give freely from their hearts, but they should give so that the world gets benefited more. And what better benefit for the world is there than to propagate Krishna consciousness? Therefore, charity should be given where Krishna consciousness plans are being laid and Krishna consciousness activities are being done in the different temples or in the different centers. That's why Srila Prabhupada has founded this International Society for Krishna Consciousness International around the whole world, so that a grihasta householder can give around the world. These days, of course, really electronic development of things it's possible for one person in one part of the world to give to another organization for Krishna consciousness in another part of the world. But most important, where the person's place is that they call the temple, they should definitely support it. So, brahmachari, students, young brahmachari, unmarried. Brahmachari itself is explained by Srila Prabhupada. A brahmachari is a student whose business is to learn about Brahman, which is we're not the body, we're the soul. The activities of the soul and how to connect even with this physical body to the soul through the instructions of Guru. That is a brahmachari's business. And brahmachari lives a very simple life. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying the brahmachari or students should perform sacrifices. You learn different sacrifices. Srila Prabhupada has simplified the process. Not all sacrifices or different yagyas are performed, not all of them, but the ones that are essential that is chosen, that we have to do. That we have to do. Brahmacharis do that, perform sacrifices, and lead in that situation. A grihasta, householder, should give charity, as we discussed. Then he said a vanaprastha, or person in retired life, or sannyasi, a person in the renounced order, should practice penances and austerities. So that's the general functions, meaning that this is a summary, the functions of the ashrams, the orders of life. Of course, there are varnas also, beginning from brahmanas at the top, then kshatriyas, the administrators, and they are also responsible for military, for protection. Then the vaishyas, the ones that are dealing with business, and they are also charged with cow protection. Of course, in Kali Yuga, not much of that's being done, unless, of course, our own centers, that the farms that have cows, they definitely protect cows. And the Shudras employees. So those are varnas, and then the four ashrams, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Student life, householder life, retired life, and renounced life. So now Srila Prabhupada goes into some details about the ashrams. Beginning from brahmachari, if the student is trained properly, they should have the understanding that, as it says in the Upanishad, that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord and everyone is given a quota. Therefore, if your quota is given, you don't go beyond that and do things that you're not supposed to do. Everything outside one's quota, they should understand that it belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And ones that are not in the quota of that person should be left alone. They are the responsibility of others. So, in brahmachari life, right from the get-go, when they come to the understanding that the world's property belongs to the Supreme Lord, and he's also the cause of all causes, then they are in the right frame of mind going to the different ashrams. Because when a brahmachari wants to, in fact, go into the grihastha ashram, that's allowed. They have to change their clothes. The saffron is no longer worn, the orange type color. And of course, then there is more responsibility, family responsibility then. But because the brahmachari is trained first by living simple life and putting Krishna as the main, the person to depend on, personality to depend on, they will in fact impart that kind of knowledge, and they're convinced about it through brahmachari training, to the family. And so the family becomes a Krishna conscious family because of the training of the brahmachari who becomes a husband. So the advantage was there. And in fact, this was practiced when Srila Prabhupada was on the planet first. Most of the male-bodied devotees were in a brahmachari ashram. Some of them stayed as brahmachari, but they went into the grihastha ashram with the proper training from brahmachari life. And therefore, Krishna consciousness was hardly a situation where the householder left it. They were actually, on the other hand, it was incorporated in the lifestyle of the household. Big, big advantage, because then the children also learn right from the get-go, Krishna consciousness. And that would help then for the whole family to be blessed in that way. In fact, Srila Prabhupada did say that a householder who has led as a husband, wife is Krishna conscious, the children have been trained for Krishna consciousness, it is not necessary that even that particular householder male go into the sannyas ashram. So this is very nice if you can just keep that. Of course, at some point when old age comes, they will be retired. Vanaprastha, obviously, age puts us there in Vanaprastha, those who get to that age. The children are grown, and now you can spend more time, although not as much energy is there at that time compared to brahmachari or grihastha life when they're younger. But still, the whole consciousness of life now is giving of one's time and one's effort to Krishna consciousness. That would help that particular person to think about Krishna practically all of the time, which is what Rupa Goswami wants us to do. Always think of the Lord, never forget the Lord, and accept activities that are favorable to Krishna consciousness, to bhakti, to loving devotional service, and reject those that are unfavorable. We should wear this 4 statements all of the time, literally. Always remember Krishna. Never forget Krishna. Connect all things as well as you can, directly or indirectly, to bhakti, to loving devotional service. And the things that are against the rule, spiritual rule of law, you reject those. Srila Prabhupada talks about energy. And science spends so much time talking about different energies and how to transform from one energy to another. But Srila Prabhupada breaks it down so simply. Everyone's energy is generated or borrowed from the reservoir of energy. The reservoir of energy belongs to the Lord. And since we are borrowing energy from the Lord in order to live life, the resultant actions, so that we don't get into Maya, must be given to the Lord in the shape of loving service for Him. Transcendental loving service for Him. That is Bhakti Yoga. Now, according to His instructions, and according to the instructions of Guru, the way to develop love of Godhead is to start serving devotees first. You love devotees, develop love for devotees, love and service to devotees, which will then transform to loving service and better understanding of loving the spiritual master. And from loving the spiritual master, naturally, we will in fact develop love for Krishna, not because of us, but because the connection has been made by Sri Krishna himself that the spiritual master is representing Krishna. Therefore, when we develop love for a spiritual master, that is the best training for developing love for Krishna. So it starts with devotees. We have to relate well to devotees. We have to be cordial to devotees we don't even know. We have to get to know devotees and talk Krishna consciousness with devotees. Who else would we be able to talk Krishna consciousness with? Anyway, Krishna Katha. It's only devotees. So as much as possible, we stay away from things that are unnecessary. Unnecessary talk is classified as gossip, pajalpa. Stay away from those. And say things that help a person's material and spiritual life, especially the spiritual life. Things in the mode of goodness and advice from experience. Those can all be shared. Older and more seasoned, mature devotees to younger devotees who are definitely eager and have the energy to serve nicely. Then the whole temple or the whole center benefits from that type of activity by the devotees, both young and old. So, householders must give charity. This is part of what comes to a householder from the reservoir of energy. And Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy. As the river draws water from the sea through the clouds, therefore the sun evaporates the seawater. Much of the clouds is actually water that's evaporated from the sea or the oceans. That's the larger bodies of water. Not so much what little that runs around on the land itself doesn't go far, even though it can be dried by the sun. But the body, the big body of clouds are from water evaporated from the oceans. So then Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy that as the river draws water from the sea through clouds. So when the clouds then pour rain, they go in the sea, but they also go into the river. And the rivers get water like that. But then Srila Prabhupada chose rivers because rivers flow ultimately to the sea. So it's like the clouds are from, for the most part, the ocean. And when the rain pours and it goes into the rivers, then the rivers give back, in a sense, give back by flowing back into the ocean. And so since that cycle is there, Srila Prabhupada uses it as an energy. Our energy is borrowed from the supreme energy, the supreme source. Therefore, it must be returned to the Lord also. It says that's our perfection of energy. Now, in Bhagavad Gita 9:27, Srila Prabhupada quotes it. And 9:27, Bhagavad Gita says, Yat karosi yat ashnasi, yat juhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya, tat kurusva mat apana. The translation is, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. So if you ponder about this, Krishna says, whatever you do it as an offering to Krishna. Whatever you eat, offer to Krishna. Whatever you offer or give away, it's like we're talking about grahastas and their duties. Do that as an offering to Krishna. Whatever austerities you perform, brahmachari or sannyas or vanaprastha, do that for Krishna. So it looks like Krishna is asking for everything. But is he really? The bottom line is, if we follow this particular instruction given by Krishna to Arjuna for our benefit, and everything that we do, directly or indirectly, we give to Krishna as an offering, Krishna says he will reward accordingly. Therefore, what we give to Krishna, Krishna also knows that he has said to do it like that. So if we obey that, then it means that we are telling Krishna in so many ways by our activities that we want to obey what he says. And Krishna is a loving exchanger. Our love to him, by obeying his instruction, he gives back. And therefore, our internal happiness then is guaranteed by Krishna, as long as we follow what he says here. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. We should never be tempted to try to give offerings to demigods who themselves depend on Krishna as the source of energy. Whatever energy that they have, whatever that they have that they use, whatever that they'll be willing to give to us, it all came from Krishna. To the point that Krishna is being said in Bhagavad Gita that those who worship demigods, they worship me indirectly. They just worship me in the wrong way. Everything should go to Krishna. We should concentrate on serving the Lord. Yes, if you have some mantras to Lord Shiva and so on, and you say that, you know, Lord Shiva is very benevolent to give the things that you ask for. But the material things that we request from demigods, they are for the most part, especially for Lord Shiva, since we're talking about him, he's not happy to give material things away. He's not. And Srila Prabhupada has spent some time on it in preaching to explain that Lord Shiva also wants devotees to go back to Godhead. Lord Shiva wants followers to go back to Godhead. Sometimes he gives mercy in that way, especially the ghosts and goblins and so on, who are actually mode of ignorance actors, those who did that in their lives, and they've been put in that kind of situation. He gives mercy to them ultimately to bring them back to Krishna, ultimately. Mm-hmm. But those who are aware now that, yes, Lord Shiva gives material things, so Srila Prabhupada explained what really happens. He says when a person does the Shiva mantra and wants material things, Lord Shiva normally does not want to give, so he looks to Lord Vishnu, literally requesting Lord Vishnu that they are asking these things. The underlying understanding is Lord Shiva knows and Lord Vishnu knows that when a person is looking for sense gratification and then they ask for material things, it's going to put them more in bondage in the material world, and they're not going to go back to Godhead after they quit the body. So Lord Shiva literally receives, according to Srila Prabhupada, permission from Lord Vishnu before he gives material things. Knowing very well that people have free choice, and they're going to do whatever they're going to do with the material things, Lord Shiva is categorized, is described as one of the greatest Vaishnavas. He's already in meditation on Lord Vishnu the whole time. So by his activities, Lord Shiva tells us we have to connect to Lord Vishnu, Krishna. And you connect to Krishna by following Krishna's instructions. And so whatever that we have, we should look at ways to directly or indirectly connect it with Krishna consciousness. That's how we're going to be successful. So in the purport for this particular text, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 27, Srila Prabhupada says, it's the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. The very thing that's been repeated by Rupa Goswami. We should mold our life in such a way that we will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. The easiest is to keep chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then Srila Prabhupada breaks down things that people do and how to connect with Krishna. Everyone has to work for maintenance of his body and soul together, and Krishna recommends that one should work for him. Everyone has to eat something to live, therefore he should accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. So if you go to the temple and the temple offers the foodstuffs to Krishna, Then we have Krishna Prasad, it's already the remnants. At home, we do the same. When we cook, we also offer. Then we have, it is very important. As a matter of fact, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that if we do not offer what we have cooked to him, then, or those who don't regularly offer, what they eat is sin. It is sin. This is how Krishna categorized it in the Bhagavad Gita, food that are not offered to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada continues that, and the civilized man has to perform some religious, ritualistic ceremonies. Krishna says, if you perform any ritualistic ceremonies, do it for me. Archana. So, everyone has a tendency to give something in charity. Krishna says, give it to me. So, all surplus money, now Srila Prabhupada does in fact talk about the hard-earned savings, the surplus money, that should be utilized for furthering the Krishna consciousness movement. So the details of that is, of course, we have to have money to keep paying the bills and the things to keep going on, taking care of the body. There should be money set aside for emergencies also. Then the rest of it, a good bit of it, should go into Krishna conscious activities as charity, so that it doesn't get wasted in the end. Or the thing is, everything belongs to Krishna anyway. So if we don't use to serve Krishna, we don't get much spiritual credits, and then we leave the body having cheated ourselves because we didn't do much, that we could have done more and did not. And now our spiritual bank account is not as heavy as it could have been if we had tried to do more with what we've accumulated in serving Krishna conscious projects. And so it is very, very important. So in Krishna, in the lecture in 1974 by Srila Prabhupada, she described our movement, Krishna conscious movement. It says it does not mean that you give up your occupational duty or give up your home or give up your family. No. There are many grihastas, as we've got. The rishis or sages, some of them were also grihastas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, particularly. He was a grihasta. He didn't give up his home. He didn't give up his job. He was a magistrate, government official. But he became a great devotee by culture. And his consciousness was devotional consciousness, but his work was in law. So that culture is Krishna Katha. So in his life, he was explaining in the lecture, Bhaktivinoda Thakur comes from his office about 5:30 in the evening or late afternoon. Immediately he would eat prasadam, go to his room, and take some rest for the day. Then he will rise up, Brahma time, begin writing his books. He gave us so many nice books. As a matter of fact, I've heard somebody say that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote up to 100 books. Some of them were his name, some of them, depending on where it was going, he used a pen name, a different name, but it was also him. So, he wrote books in Bengali, he wrote books in Hindi, and some of them in Sanskrit. So he engaged himself. If one wants to serve Krishna, look at Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life. What he was strong in, he used, and he wrote a lot of songs too. Very nice songs, very nice tunes to them. That some of them are in the Songs of the Vaishnava Acharyas. There's a section for Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs. So much we can learn from the translations of those songs. So even when you become a responsible worker, government officer, he still, with all the activities that he had to do, he still carried out the orders of Guru and Gauranga. He lived his life like that. So he's a very, very good example for us in the Grihastha Ashram. Now, Srila Prabhupada goes into breaking down some things that we should be concerned with And there's some qualities in the spiritual culture that we have to imbibe or we have to take in so that we live a life in the mode of goodness, and also, of course, by our spiritual training, we live a life of transcendence. So the king's duties are there, but as far as salvation is concerned, one has to conquer the principles of lust, anger, unlawful desires, bewilderment, envy. And Sri Prabhupada says to get freedom from anger, one should learn how to forgive. If you look at both situations, anger, which is very much in the mode of passion, and forgiveness in the mode of goodness, we can learn to then get along with people. But if they offend us, that we deal with the matter and then forgive. So once you get up early, by spiritual culture, one is able to conquer sleep, because spiritual culture, the rules, part of it is to get up early. Tolerance, then desires and envy can be dealt with by tolerance. Disturbances from various diseases, if you have regulated diets, and not only just regulated, but simple diets, and Prabhupada stressed that. In your life, disease, some point, there will be some mild diseases that will come, some of them, depending on what's going on, it could be major, but still, of course, our minds are always aware that the body is not going to last forever, but we can keep it in the best shape possible and use it in serving Krishna. By self-control, one can be free from false hopes, and money can be saved by avoiding undesirable association. Through undesirable associations, we tend to misuse money. Desirable association with devotees, they will not tell you to go waste money in gambling, because they know it's one of the regulated principles. Certainly not buy meat and intoxication. That way the money is protected and used in the mode of goodness activities only. So it is important. It seems simple because we know that this is how we live our lives, but actually it is important to stay with that, because Maya is always attentive, wanting to change our minds and what we do. So good association and avoid undesirable association, that will keep us doing the right thing. If we're already doing the right thing, that will make us stay doing the right thing. Never assume that just because we're doing the right thing now, the Maya cannot take our minds off the right thing and then tempt us to do the wrong thing at any time. Maya's department is always actively challenging us, so that if our intelligence kicks in more and is more vigilant with us, then we can stay in the right path, mode of goodness, and in transcendence by chanting and remembering the Lord all of the time. Sorry. Talkativeness can be avoided by gravity and silence. We need to take stock of what we're doing by being quiet, by also being chanting in a meditative mood, and run things. The more quiet we are, the more we hear guidance from a spiritual master, and also from the Lord in the heart. So it is actually important that sometimes that we actually are quiet and in a meditative mood. That helps us and also makes us assess things, the way things are going. Perfect knowledge can be obtained by self-cultivation. And Sri Prabhupada brings it up again. One must be freed from lust and from envy, from anger, to attain the path of salvation. So those are the mode of goodness things that we, things that are bad that we need to avoid in order to be in the mode of goodness. He talked about women. Women are accepted as the power of inspiration for men. They said that women can, in fact, help men to be successful. Many times, that's what happens. A person that helps the man to go on with things that they're in the same mindset, a man can be successful very much when the woman is. behind making sure that the things that are needed to be done and the inspiration that's supposed to be given is given. So much is there that Bhishma Dev taught Yudhishthira that we can benefit from. There are parts that is even, this is actually what he told Yudhishthira is longer than what Srila Prabhupada has said here, but Srila Prabhupada says so much now that we can benefit from. And if we take these seriously, then we have a very, very good chance of living a decent life, representing the Society for Krishna Consciousness properly, and then going back to Godhead at the end of this life. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you for, sorry. Thank you so much for such a nice detailed class. And when I looked at the purport, I was like, whoa, that's a long one. A lot of information. And definitely a purport that we have to go back and make our notes because it's so informative, I think is the right word. That's the word, extensive. Thank you. Yeah, extensive and informative. So thank you. I had two questions, but as I was writing it down, you answered it in your class. So you answered my question. One
you
was
can comment as a takeaway if you like.
Yes, definitely. But well, let me ask the devotees if there are any questions from them, any comments, any takeaways, any sharing that you would like to share from this wonderful, amazing, extensive class. Please do jump right in and share your thoughts. And while others are thinking, the first one that I had is the question I had is, Kali Yuga, as we know, is progressively degrading. And sometimes to really know how to apply or follow, not even apply, just follow, what we have been given by Bhishma Dev, it's such a struggle. And then you mentioned Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which answered my question, because sometimes we think, I have to go to the forest, or I have to give up everything, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. But then when you mentioned Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it was a perfect example. So that was one of the answers that you answered for my question, was we just have to use our current situation in Krishna's service like Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. That was one takeaway that I really liked. That was a reminder for us that, but if I can ask a question to that, now another question is coming to my mind is that, unfortunately, the mind is such a rascal that even though we know and we've heard and we've read glories of so many devotees like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who has used their current position in in Krishna's service, and devotees, say, I guess they could do it because they're so elevated. Who are we? And the word that's coming to our mind is like a cop-out situation. How can we, I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm just trying to think is, how can we not think, but they did that, they're so elevated, what can I do? I'm so stuck in this grind and grum and blah, blah, blah. Like, how can we really rise above, I think is the word, to not be so caught up in our material life, but find ways to use our current situation in Krishna's service? How can we rise above?
Bhaktivinoda Thakur and other pure devotees of the Lord who came to this world lived the life that they led as an example and an inspiration for us. We may not be able to get to the level of austerity that they performed, but they have performed life in austerity to show us that austerity is important in our lifestyle. Therefore, we should adopt to the extent that we can and a life with that in mind. If we do not, then it's with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, so we're still with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a large family also, children. So he was a very, 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 in a sense, taxed father. There's so much to do. When you have fewer children, you have less responsibility. When you have a lot more children, then you have to learn to, you have to adjust to, being a father with that many children. Now in Kali Yuga, not many people are having a lot of children, 2 or 3, but like 10 or more was what Bhakti Thakur's family class does that. Now, so when we read about his lifestyle and how he managed his home, his work, and also his Krishna consciousness, it gives us a sense. The leader has to show by a great example. And so as a leader, his example was good, not good, excellent. He's an attorney, he has so much responsibility. So we have to keep going, but not comparing ourselves to, okay, Bhakti Thakur did this, can we come up to that level? No, we have to be at the level that is a sample of how he lived. It's a sample of how he lived. That is, make the best use of a time. Make the best use of a time. Do your occupational duty. Of course, we have to understand that we got to take up a job that doesn't violate the regulative principles. That's on the devotee to stay away from those types of situations. I know devotees who are even truck drivers, and they made arrangement with a company not to haul kind of merchandise that goes against the regulative principles, and the companies agreed and worked with them. So it is possible. All you have to do is just speak up and say, okay, this is my situation, it's against my religion, and please, therefore I can do this and this and this and this. But here are a few exceptions. Please don't put me in that situation. That's all. Or if the company is just doing like meat distribution and stuff, not to get employment there, because that's asking for trouble. So Krishna will always take care of us when we put the spiritual rule of law first. So that alone is victory of some sorts, occupational duty that does not violate. And then we go on, time that we have taking care of our family for parents, and also making sure that our children and we ourselves are doing what we need to do in Krishna consciousness according to the instructions of a spiritual master. And it's that simple. It's that simple. That is what the pure devotees did, but they did to show, because he was leading and showing us by example. Srila Prabhupada, look what he went through to bring this international society of Krishna consciousness. It's not easy to do that. Look how many books he wrote. How many books can we write? Yeah, but we do things along those lines, using our time profitably. Then Krishna will be happy with us also. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. In fact, as you were speaking, I was remembering, and not remembering, I was reminded about Krishna and Arjuna, right? How Krishna told Arjuna not to give up the battlefield. You are a warrior. Just do your duty, your occupational duty, and leave the results to me. So yes, he never gave up being a warrior, although he was a devotee of the Lord. Yes, thank you for that. Yes, Mother Gita, please, Mother.
Hare Krishna, Mother Gita.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances.
That's fine.
Thank you so much for such a in-depth class. You were talking about anger and forgiveness. Are they interrelated?
When the short answer is yes. And how that works, by what has been explained to me, you just look at the mood. A person who's angry, what are they like at the time that they're angry? If you're very angry, you could even call it like a ferocious situation. Their mind is just, going after the person who's made them angry. Some thoughts come to their mind, the things that they might wish that could happen to that person that they're angry with. Sometimes things like that happen. I wish this happened. They may not say it. Some people do, in fact, when they say it, they get very, very angry and wish negative things. But forgiveness is exactly, well, not quite the opposite, but the mood is the mood of going on to the mode of goodness. When it comes to anger, the mood itself is mode of passion. Some of the things that can come out of the anger, the person said, maybe in the mode of ignorance, maybe the negative things, maybe destructive. Sometimes the actions from it can be destructive. But when a person forgives, then they basically bring their mood back to a somber mode of goodness. Just imagine a person who is angry trying to chant. That's not possible. It's not possible. So then transcendence is ruled out totally. Now, of course, there are situations that anger can be used for serving the Supreme Personality of God. The Kshatriyas do that. That's a special category by itself. But in general, when anger, and sometimes it does happen, we have to be careful not to have those negative words come out of our mouths. When we're in a situation that causes anger, hopefully by chanting, our intelligence will kick in and then avoid that situation. If we have to physically move away from that situation, then we do that. I had to do that quite a few times when I was teaching in the universities. Some people will make a comment openly, especially in the lab, chemistry lab, where we interact more with students, openly make a comment that I know is offensive, and I might get upset about it. And I had to train myself to say something to get it out of my system, but not in front of the student. I would walk away to another part and then say it away, facing some sort of object or hood or something, and say it and go on. And I'll tell you one funny story. One time, one of the students, when I walked away from somebody who had beat says, "Well, Dr. Gardner, you're treating me like a child." What well, I need to hear that from the heat of things that are going on. There's so many things that I have to make sure the students are doing properly. And this girl, whatever comes out of her mouth, she doesn't think twice about it. She just blurts it out, and blurts it openly and loudly too. And I said, "You think I'm treating you like a child? You are a child in some of the things that you do." But I never said it in front of her. I just turned away. And one of the students heard and said, "Is that what did you say?" I said, "Well, it's not actually for you. Somebody's making you upset. I'm just getting it out of my system." So never in front of that person. Yeah, you will be tried. That's just life. The person that will say, "I'll never get angry," that's not true. It will happen. It will happen. In Kali Yuga these days, it's more than likely going to happen. But how you deal with it, and of course, at the end, when I said that out of my system, I said, "You acting like it." I never bothered her anymore. In the end, if you want to know the end, so he became quite a model student. He came to my office for so much help in chemistry, writing the lab reports, and then he began to get it. She began to get it. And then later on, she praised me openly in the classroom. Same person. Same person praised me openly in the classroom. So yeah, I have to just forget about it and forgive her. And then I also feel better after that. When you forgive, you also feel better. You put your mind back and your temperament back in the mode of goodness. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. That was really nice. And I liked how you related moving from mode of passion, which is anger, to mode of goodness, which is forgiveness. That was a nice comparison. I think that's the right word, but yeah, thank you. Any questions? I know we passed the 9 o'clock, but just wanted to just make sure that any questions, any comments from devotees. And also a quick reminder that tomorrow morning's class is Chandramali Swami's class at 7 o'clock. So please do remember to log on 1 hour early. Tomorrow morning is Chandramali Swami's class at 1 o'clock. And tonight we have our second Bhagavad Gita circle at 6 o'clock. So please do not forget to join us at 6 o'clock this evening, 6 to 6:30, for our second Bhagavad Gita circle discussion. Until then, have a wonderful day. Vanchakrapatubhyascha kripasindhabhebhya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, devotees. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.